Hello, everyone. My name is Ole Kagan, and I'm the Community Engagement Coordinator with LA County Library, and I welcome you to Work Ready, how to talk about yourself so people remember you. Before we get going to today's event, I'm going to take care of some housekeeping, do the land acknowledgement, and tell you a little bit about the Work Ready program. So if you can hear me and see the slide on the screen, then you're good to go. However, if you're having trouble hearing me or seeing me, do let me know in the chat and I will do my best to assist. If you'd like to listen to this presentation on the phone, you can do that by calling 1-669-900-6833 and using the access code 843-4651-4951 and the passcode 123123. Additionally, automated closed captioning is available on Zoom in case you would like to read along with the presentation. To enable that, you would press the CC button in your Zoom window. Now, you may have noticed that the mics and video is disabled for attendees of the program, and that's so that everyone can focus on our presenter for the day. We do, however, welcome your questions and comments. Questions can go into the Q&A box. That's the one with the single speech bubble. And comments can go in the chat. That's the one with the two speech bubbles. All right, let us move on to our land acknowledgement. The County of Los Angeles recognizes that we occupy land originally and still inhabited and cared for by the Tongva, Tataviam, Serrano, Quiche, and Chumash peoples. We honor and pay respects to their elders and descendants, past, present, and emerging, as they continue their stewardship of these lands and waters. We acknowledge that settler colonization resulted in land seizure, disease, subjugation, slavery, relocation, broken promises, genocide, and multi-generational trauma. This acknowledgement demonstrates our responsibility and commitment to truth, healing, and reconciliation, and to elevating the stories, culture, and community of the original inhabitants of Los Angeles County. We are grateful to have the opportunity to live and work on these ancestral lands. We are dedicated to growing and sustaining relationships with Native peoples and local tribal governments, including, in no particular order, the Fernandino Tataviam Band of Mission Indians, the Gabrielino Tongva Indians of California Tribal Council, the Gabrielino Tongva San Gabriel Band of Mission Indians, the Gabrielino Band of Mission Indians Quiche Nation, Yuhaviatam of San Manuel Nation, San Fernando Band of Mission Indians, Coastal Band of Chumash Nation, Gabrielino Tongva Nation, and Gabrielino Tongva Tribe. To learn more about the First Peoples of Los Angeles County, please visit the Los Angeles City County Native American Indian Commission website at lanic.lacounty.gov. Okay, and now I'm going to tell you a little bit about the Work Ready program. Work Ready has been around since December of 2020, all the way back that far, if you can believe it, when we started lending out laptops and presenting virtual events just like this one um, for folks who are looking to get a job, improve their work situation, and plan a more sustainable career path. And these virtual events have been on all sorts of topics, from the basics like interviews, cover letters, and resumes, to deep dives into various careers and all sorts of other possible topics that makes folks work ready. And if you'd like to see over 100 of our past events, you can head over to our work and career playlist on our YouTube channel. There's surely something there that's going to be of interest to you or to somebody you know. All right. And then if you'd like to learn more about LA County Library events, you can, of course, go to our website at lacountylibrary.org. All of our events are available at the event calendar by clicking the events button in the middle of the navigation bar that's going to give you all of the events in person and virtual for kids, teens, adults, older adults, and even emerging adults. And if you're just interested in virtual programs like this one, you can also click on that button in the middle and drop down will come up, hit virtual events, and you'll see all of our Zoom events. And of course, all of our programs are absolutely free. All right, and let me go ahead and introduce our esteemed speaker for today and get started with today's program. Christy Dimitrakis is a seasoned business professional with 30 plus years of experience in sales and management across several Fortune 500 companies. She holds a bachelor's from the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, and an MBA. Currently, Christy is a president of The Empowered Speaker, a company that coaches people to increase their faith, increase their confidence, and conquer their fears both professionally and personally. She achieves this through workshops, conferences, and keynotes. Christy's passionate about empowering others to achieve their dreams and walk in their purpose. Her empowering and inspirational spirit shines through in her books, Faith to Conquer Fear, Inspiration to Achieve Your Dreams, and her Amazon best-selling book, Faith to Conquer Fear, The Journey. Christy is a certified instructor for the Speakers Training Camp, offering on-site and virtual programs for companies and organizations to improve their public speaking and presentation skills. She lives in Kentucky with her husband and 2 dogs. And today she will be sharing how to talk about yourself so people remember you. Christy, the stage is yours.
Can you see my slides?
Yep, everything's coming up perfectly.
Oh, actually, I'm going to change it because I clicked something wrong here. So let me stop sharing for just a moment. All right. All right. How are we looking?
Looking good.
Okay, fantastic. Hello, hello. I am in Kentucky and not anywhere in lovely, beautiful LA, but I am so glad to be here with you all. Thank you so much, Oleg. And hello, everyone. Some of you I've probably had the opportunity to talk to before. So thank you for coming back and welcome to those of you who are new that I have not met before. I read a quote that says, "People will see you as you present yourself. Learn to present yourself well." I'm going to say that one more time. People will see you as you present yourself. Learn to present yourself well. So this is our first opportunity to be interactive. I want you to type in the chat, what does that mean to you? What does that quote mean? What do you think when you hear that? And I'm going to open up my chat while I'm giving you all a moment to type in your responses. Keep your chat open because there'll be lots of opportunities to type today. Be confident of what you offer. Our aura, how we carry ourselves. I like that, Daisy. Definitely how you are dressed. You can judge a book by its cover, maybe appearance or speech and action. Feeling good about your appearance. It's coming in so fast, I can't read them all. Your attitude, presentation is important. Yes, you get one chance to make a first impression. All these things are true. So some of you here today may be actively job searching. Some of you may be exploring new options or changes of careers. You might be re-entering the workforce. And the goal of this session is not to teach you how to impress people. Okay? We can do that another time, but it's not to teach you how to impress people. The goal is to help you communicate clearly and confidently so people understand you and, more importantly, they remember you. If someone walks away with a clear vision of who you are as a professional, we're going to call that a win. So over the years, I have had the opportunity to be interviewed and have interviewed hundreds, and I mean hundreds, of potential clients. I spent the last 34 years as a sales and capability leader across the consumer packaged goods and beverage industry. Companies like Purina, Fort James Corporation, Coors Brewing Company, the Gillette Company, and my last company of 21 years that I just retired from in August of 2025, Procter& and Gamble. Yeah, you guys can give me some whoop whoops in the chat because that's a big deal. I declared about 7 years ago that I would retire at 55, and I retired at 54 a month before my birthday to be 55. So yay me. All right. But what this does is thank you. I love all those hearts. Yay. So this enables me, this being able to retire really enables me to focus on what I love. And that is my business, the Empowered Speaker that I created 19 years ago, really to help people become confident and dynamic speakers. I'm a two-time author, as Oleg said. One of my books, my second book, Faith to Conquer Fear, The Journey, is my Amazon bestseller. I have a wonderful, beautiful family, and I need to add a picture because I'm married to my husband, James. He and I have been married for 31 years. Woo woo again. Yes. We have two babies. They are not babies. They are grown people. Okay. My daughter is now a doctor. She got married in October, so that's the picture I need to add. I need to add my new son. She got married in October and she is a doctor at a local hospital here. She's in her first year of residency, but we've been calling her a doctor the whole time, like giving her a chance to diagnose us and all these things. So anyway, and then I have a son as well who lives in Louisville, Kentucky. And then I have two fur babies, Bella and Sam. My voice always changes when I say Sam's name. But anyway, so all those things are fantastic. And then the third dog you see there, little pit bull, is my grand dog. That's Diamond. So I have had lots of experiences over the last 34 years. I've had the pleasure of being a mom, a wife, an author, and all those wonderful things. And I've also, as I said before, had lots of opportunities to interview people, which is why I feel so comfortable talking about the topic that we're going to talk about today. So I just shared a whole lot about myself. Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Heather. Congratulations on all of it. How many of you enjoy talking about yourself? Put it in the chat. How many of you enjoy talking about yourself? Sometimes I don't. Genesis is like, no. Yes, I do not. A little. I try not to. Not really. Hated it. Guilty, sort of. Mostly yes, but like to focus on others. Okay. All right. We got a little range there. Most of you are erring on the side of it depends. We got a few confident folks in the bunch like, yeah, give me the mic. I will talk about myself all day. Now, here's my next question. If talking about your career is a struggle, I want you to type one word in the chat that describes how talking about your career usually feels. So, Rebecca, I'm expecting to definitely see a response from you because you said yes on a personal level, not on a professional level. Scary, boring, nervous, dentist. Love it. Not great, scary, shy. Okay, wow. Somebody's saying they can't see the chat, Oleg, so I don't know if you want to address that or not. But
Sorry,
anyway,
yeah, sorry, Krista. Yeah, the chat is set to private so that you and I can see folks' responses, but
oh,
people can't see each other's responses, just for
oh, got
privacy.
it, got it. Okay, so it's important that I'm reading it off because they don't even know
Yep,
what's on the chat. Okay,
exactly.
very
Thank you.
well, very well. Thank you for that. I apologize for, I didn't know that. So I'm seeing a lot of responses, and nobody said the word awkward, but I can deduce from some of the things that you all are saying is that awkward is one of those things. And how you're feeling doesn't mean that you're bad at communication. Okay. It does not mean that you're bad at communication. Most people struggle because they're unsure where to start, what details matter, and how much to actually say. So, some common challenges that we see are rambling, oversharing, or downplaying experiences. These are very common, in addition to the millions of things you all put in the chat. These are very common, and exactly why the framework that I'm going to share with you today will help you along the way. Okay, tell me in the chat, what is the purpose of a resume? What's the purpose of a resume? To get an interview, highlight your skills, marketing tools, show your experience, sell yourself, to show your, oh, that's fast. To get an interview, uh, Oleg, you're gonna have to jump in. I'm seeing they're coming in fast. Tell the story of
Yeah,
your
there's so
capabilities.
many.
There's a there's a
Demonstrate your experience, summarize your career in a way that highlights relevant experience, an overview of knowledge, skills, experience, and abilities. I like that one. To pique
yes,
interest, introduce
yes,
yourself and showcase your experience and strengths to show how you fit a job with your experience. Oh, I like this one. This is interesting to chart a trajectory.
that is good. That is good. Well,
Mhm.
okay, so in some form or fashion, you all have hit it. The purpose of a resume, I mean, if you look at any resume, there's a template. Okay, there's a template for a resume, and they all ish look about the same. You're going to have your job titles. You're going to have your dates of employment. You're going to have the responsibilities. You may have some awards or achievements if you have certifications, some things that you're skilled at, whether I'm proficient in Microsoft or ChatGPT or something like that. Okay. So that's what a resume covers. Now, too often, and again, this is pulling from my experience of interviewing lots of people, when an interviewer asks someone to tell me about yourself, who cringes at that question? Tell me in chat, who cringes when you hear that question? Tell me about yourself. Me. OMG, me. Yes, yep. And you should, because I'll tell you, from an interviewer's perspective, that is the best question I could ever ask. Why? Why? This one I wish we were actually live so y'all could talk to me, but we're going to have to talk this way. Why is that the best question an interviewer can ask? Somebody tell me just real quick in the chat. Type it out real quick. It's an open-ended question. Absolutely. Open-end and see the person mentality. You can elaborate. It's a way to get the answers to all the things you cannot legally ask. If you've heard me do webinars on this topic before, you've heard me say that. There are some things, and you know this to be true, there are some things an interviewer cannot ask you. But if they just give you a big old open-ended question, because most people don't understand the power of the pause, because most people don't take the time to structure and think about what is going to be my answer to that question, they ramble. And when you start rambling, what happens? You just say stuff. Whatever comes to your mind, you just start saying it. So, as an interviewer, I love that question. But the problem is the person being interviewed starts usually providing this chronological list of dates and jobs that they've had. Okay? So, here's an example of what someone might say. If I asked you, tell me about yourself. If you didn't start going down the resume line by line, and I've seen that too, you might say something as simple as I worked in customer service in 1992, then in operations in 1994, and then I decided I wanted to shift to sales. So in 1998, I changed companies and da 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 da. Okay? That's a resume style answer. Why is this not an ideal response? Why is this not an ideal response? It's redundant. They can read your ding, ding, ding. They can read. They can read. Okay. A resume lists facts. That's the whole purpose of a resume. That's why a good interviewer, they can quickly scan that resume and they know within 10 good seconds. I might be faster, but they know in a good few seconds if this person is a fit. I saw somebody else say it's a fit. If they've got the credentials that we're looking for, if they've worked for the type of companies that will give the type of experience, and they know all those things. So a resume lists the facts, but a story, that's the title of the slide, resume versus story. A story creates connection. A story creates connection. Okay? So employers already have your resume. I missed who said that, but employers already have your resume, but they're listening for something else. They're listening for something else. They want to know how you think. I'm trying to move my little screen here. Hold on. They want to know how you think. Are you a linear thinker? Your thinking follows kind of a straight path and gets you to a logical answer. Okay, that's one way. They also want to know, are you a creative? Are you an out of the box thinker? Do you come up with new ways and new innovative ways to do existing things? So they want to know how you think. They want you to be able to, they want to know how you explain yourself and your experiences. Are you positive or negative? because the way that you answer the question about past experiences will tell me as an interviewer whether you have a positive mindset about that or whether you're still stuck in the past if something negative happened that's caused this transition and for you to be looking for another job. So that comes out in your answers. They also wanted to do you articulate clearly in a way that other people can understand. Interviewers or employers also want to know how you connect the dots. Can you take complex ideas and pull it together into something that makes sense? I coach speaking, my speakers training camp program, my public speaking coaching program in companies of places that I've never worked, in industries that I've never been in. And when those people are presenting information to me, if they're doing their presentations and it is on the content of their company, their first job is to order it and structure it in a way that I, who don't know anything about their industry, can understand it. So how do you connect the dots? That's what they're also looking for. So all of these hows, how you think, how you explain yourself, how you connect the dots, are best demonstrated through stories. Okay, they're best demonstrated through stories. If you were here the last time, I think the last session I did, Oleg, was mastering the interview last year. I believe that was the last one. You heard me talk about the CAR format, the acronym CAR, C-A-R. And the CAR, the C stands for the context or the background. It's also called the bar, okay? But you give the context or the background when you're asked a question. Then you describe the actions you took and the results, whatever results you generated. That's the CAR format. When you follow this format, you are telling a story. There's a reason, interviewers or people who train on interviewing teach you to follow a format because that format allows you to tell a story. And that's what interviewers want to hear. They want to hear a story. And when you follow the format, if done well, your answers will reveal how you think, how you explain yourself, how you connect the dots. A story creates connection. Now, let's look at a quick example. So in this example, the story style, I've got too many things going on my screen here, says, I've spent most of my career helping teams solve problems and improve how they serve customers. Now, I want you to compare that. The resume list example was, I worked in customer service, then operations, then sales. In the chat, tell me which version is easier to remember. What's going to make you more memorable? I spent most of my career helping teams solve problems and improve how they serve customers, or I worked in customer service, then operations, then sales. Yeah, the story one. The story one. A, I love that. A. So a story helps people remember you. If you all think back to your childhood, and even now, I'm an avid reader. I often say, if you listen to audiobooks, is that considered reading? Okay, it is. I'm an avid audiobook reader slash listener. But growing up, I loved books. I loved books. And if you were, as a child, probably if you, let me see, how many of you, let me ask it this way, that way I don't put anybody on the spot. How many of you have wonderful memories of being read stories as a child or enjoy stories? Thank you, Ray, for confirming for me. Yes, definitely, definitely, definitely. Anytime you can tell a story, people will always remember. People always remember stories. So a story helps people remember you, not just your job titles. So employers are not looking for perfection. They're not looking for perfection. They're listening for clarity. Can you explain yourself without confusion? They're listening for confidence. Do you believe your experience has value? They're listening for direction and growth. Do you know where you're going and what you've learned along the way? I have seen highly qualified people not show up well in interviews simply because they didn't have a good structure for being able to talk about their experiences. Structure is what helps your confidence shine through. When you feel like you're organized, this is what I teach in my public speaking training course. The very first thing I teach them is stake. So their stake, sizzle, and style. I teach them stake. Stake is the structure. Once you get the structure right, your confidence builds because you know what you're going to say. Now, the rest of it is figuring out how you're going to say it and how you're going to make it interesting. But the structure is really, really important. So, let's talk about this framework. This framework. It's a four-part career story framework. And what this actually works in interviews, it works for networking conversations, it works for first day introductions, it can work in a number of ways. You don't need fancy language, you really just need structure, which is what we just talked about. So the four parts are where you've been, what you're known for, the shift or the growth, and where you're going. Those are the four parts, and we're going to talk about each one of these. And they can shorten or expand depending on the situation. But let's talk about the first one, where you've been, part one. This is the section that really just provides the context of your past experiences, not your entire job history. Remember, we're not listing things off. And in 1992, I was here, then I transitioned and I was here. And I've done that before. Early in my career, I've done that. But you want to keep it to one or two sentences. You want to focus on themes, not timelines. This is not where you're listing every job, which is what we kind of automatically default to because it's safe. We know where we've worked before. Okay. You want to mention industries, skills, or roles that you've had. So, what does that look like? What does that look like? Here are two examples. Example one. Most of my experience has been in administrative and customer facing roles in healthcare and education. All right, so in that example, what's the context? Most of my experience, well, the context is you got your one sentence. So that's the first thing I'm gonna say. So it's one sentence. And if you talk about themes and not every job, most of my experience has been in administrative and customer facing roles. And we talk about industries, healthcare and education. So check, it checks the box on where you've been. The second example, my career has been in sales, capability, and leadership roles in the consumer packaged goods and beverage industry. Same thing, one sentence in this case, focusing on the themes, sales, capability, roles, leadership roles, where in the consumer packaged goods and beverage industry. So that's a good overview. If I had to tell someone, the second one was mine, if I had to tell someone in one line where I've been or what my past experiences have focused on, I could absolutely say that. My career, the last 34 years of my career has been in sales, capability, and leadership roles in the consumer packaged goods and beverage industry. The key here is if you start listing years or job titles back to back, I will tell you to scope up or zoom out and get to a more high level conversation versus the individuals. Now, in the chat, without overthinking it, because I've given you exactly 12.2 seconds to come up with this, I want you to type one phrase, one sentence describing where you've been. Mirror the example on the screen. And Oleg, you and I are going to read these off as fast as we can. Okay? So no years, no jobs, just mirror kind of what you see on the screen. Give me a few here. Can think fast on their feet.
Well, I'm ready for these.
Me too. I work in global entertainment finance, focusing on how film content actually turns into revenue. Okay. Oleg, you
Most of
want to
my
take that one?
experience, yeah. Most of my experience has been in administrative and customer service in the entertainment and trade show industries.
That's perfect. Yes.
So,
My career is focused on community building and relationship management in many industries, including education. It moved up the screen, but that was you're off to a great start.
much of my experience has been in administration and customer facing roles in the nonprofit and community sectors.
Love it. These are so good. You guys have done this. I gave you like a minute. So
Yeah.
fantastic. All right. Okay. So that's part one, where you've been. Where you've been. Remember that. Okay. Part two, what you're known for. What you're known for. This is where confidence shows up. This is where you ask yourself, what do people rely on me for? Or what problems am I often asked to solve? And I always say that, and then this feels a little bit like bragging. This is when some people go, "Ugh, I don't want to talk about myself. I don't want to brag." It's not bragging if it's facts. So if people have asked you, if people continually come to you for a thing because they know that you have expertise in that area, that's your skill. And so what you're I'm stuff I have too many things in front of me. What you're known for is a combination of the skill you have and the impact it delivers.
Christy.
Say it again. It is a combination of the skill you have and the impact that that skill in action delivers. Were you going to say
What will
something,
be
Holly?
yours, Christy? Yeah.
Say again.
What's yours?
Oh, I have so many. I don't mind talking about
There we
myself.
go.
No, one of my skills is I ask amazing questions. And I have so many people tell me you ask the questions that nobody thinks to ask and or are afraid to ask. And the impact of that is it gets us to better solutions. I always tell my husband when you ask the wrong question, you're going to get the wrong answer. If you don't ask questions, you're going to get whatever you get. But that I would say that's one of mine.
That's a good one. That's an important one.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so pairing your skill with an impact. Let's look at an example. I'm known for staying calm under pressure and helping teams stay organized during busy periods. I'm known for, so what is in this case, what is the skill? Tell me in the chat, what is the skill in this example?
Yep. Staying
Staying
calm.
calm. You
Yeah.
got it. And what's the impact?
Yeah, like somebody mentioned, it's organization,
Yes,
keeping others on
organization.
track.
And do you know any company who does not want someone who can help people stay organized, especially during stressful times or busy periods?
That's
So
the
that's
most
a
important one.
marketable skill. And sometimes we get caught up in skill, we think of things that are tangible. Staying calm is an intangible skill. You know it when you see it, but it's not something that you can go, I'm going to take a course on staying calm. I mean, you can work on staying calm, but some people just have it. Some people just have it. They have the ability to not buckle under the pressure. And those are typically the people who end up being the leaders because organizations need calm. Organizations need stability. They need someone who can rally people and or get people to calm down when things get out of control. Okay? So, finish this sentence in the chat. People often rely on me to XYZ, or people rely on me for, tell me in the chat. And we'll read these off as well, Lily.
Say, be a problem solver, streamline their systems, get the job done. I think I want that to be more specific. Get the job done on time, quickly,
There you go.
efficiently. People
Yes.
often rely on me to troubleshoot complex problems.
That's
Super.
a good one. That's a good one.
Help find information. Oh, they're coming in faster now. Come up with creative solutions. I'm helping teams stay up, following up with clients to ensure smooth experience. Organize the chaos while being kind to others. Ooh, that's a great combination.
That's a good one. De-escalate conflict and preserve relationships. That's a really good one too. Oh, untangle messy settlements, translating contracts to real numbers. I'll tell you, Lucia, that is powerful one because this goes back to what I was saying earlier is how do you take something complex and make it not complex for the layperson? That's a gift. That's a skill that a lot of
Translation
people don't have. Yeah.
to help
These
people
are
see problems
wonderful.
clearly.
I saw someone say, how do you answer this question if you have a lot of skills? First of all, that's a good problem to have.
For sure.
That's a good problem to have. But again, go back to what are the things that people really come to you for? If you really take a step back and say, okay, what is my superpower? I didn't want to use that word, but I'm going to. What is my superpower? What is the thing that people go, yep, we need somebody on our team who can do X, Y, and Z. I know just the person. And that's you. That's what you're known for. Okay, that's what you're known for. Okay, wonderful. Fantastic. All right, let's shift to part three. Part three in the career storytelling framework is the shift or growth moment. Shift or growth moment. This is where people tend to get uptight, especially when you're not sure how to address it. In this case, we're talking about things like career changes, gaps in your career, layoffs, caregiving, reentry. All of these moments belong in your career story. Let me pause and ask, has anyone been affected by any of these in the course of your career? And if you've worked more than a year for more than one company, I bet you. Okay, somebody says all of them, gaps in caregiving, all of them, yes, gaps, yes, still a student. Okay, it's going fast. All of the above, yes, yes, most of them
Yes.
layoffs, layoff pandemic, career changes within the same company. Right now, motherhood, maternity leaves, all of these things. Okay, so would you agree? Would you agree that this is an area where you may have some anxiety about communicating it or explaining it in an interview? I see Raina's, I'm probably saying it wrong, but I saw your comment there. Yes, yes, definitely. Yes, definitely. Transition to a different career, especially related to, okay, it's going so fast, I can't see it. But
Yeah,
yes,
this is
yes
definitely
is
an
the
issue.
resounding
A lot of these are
response.
issues.
So, but here's the thing. Embracing for judgment. That is such a great line. That's such a great line, Ellen, because you feel like there's gonna be some judgment because you've had something in your resume that you can't explain. And I will tell you from an interviewer's perspective, we notice the gaps. I look chronologically and I can quickly go, "Ooh, I see there was 2 years off." But what I can't say is, what were you doing in that 2 years off? But what I can say is, I noticed that there is a window of time in your resume where it looks like you didn't have any information. And I would just leave it hanging just like that. Because that's just like the tell me about yourself question. Now you have an opportunity. For me, it's they're about to tell me exactly what happened, which I can't really ask, or they're going to give me an answer that helps to kind of, smooth it over. Okay. So, but here's the important part, and I'm going to show you some ways to answer all of these. Addressing these moments, as I said before, can actually strengthen your career story. The key is to focus on what you learned in each of these moments and where you are headed. You control the narrative. Let me say that again. You control the narrative. All I can do as an interviewer is throw the question out there. You get to decide how you answer it. So, how do we talk about it? How do we talk about it? So, let's look at some examples of how we could talk about career changes, gaps, and layoffs. And we'll talk about all five, but we'll talk about these first three first. Okay? Career changes. Here's an example of how you might answer the question if that came up. I noticed, and this happens a lot. For example, when we used to interview for potential interns or people who were coming in as a first time job and they were coming from multiple internships. If they had had an internship in finance and then they had an internship in sales and then they had an internship in HR, all of you know that those are three very different functions. And the first thing I ask is, hey, I see that you've had an internship in finance, you've had an internship in sales, you had an internship in HR, making it up. Help me understand which of these you're interested in and why are you now interested in this? Because if they can't explain it, I'm not confident that you're confident that this is the job you want because you've tried so many different things. So you need to have an answer for the interviewer. Here's an example of an answer. I've taken on a few different roles over time, but the common thread has been building strong communication and problem solving skills. That's what I'm excited to bring into this next role. So you see how that's just a nice high level articulate way of addressing career changes or, scope of work changes. The next one, gaps in your resume. I had a period away from full-time work. And during that time, I stayed engaged by sharpening my skills and being intentional about my next step. I'm now ready and motivated to return to the workforce. What do you all think of this one? Tell me in the chat. Very good, nice. What do you do if the interviewer doesn't bring up the gap? Then you don't bring it up. Unless, unless it helps your story. Okay? I always say I have a sales background, and I always say the more you talk, the more chance you have for divulging something you don't really want to divulge. So if there's not a question, I wouldn't address it unless you feel like that's something that you can use to your advantage. There are some critical skills. If you'll notice on my resume, as an example, if you notice on my resume, I had 2 years off. During that 2 years, I decided that I was going to go back to school to get my master's degree. I had been saving for blah, 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 blah. And over that time, I secured my master's degree. I was also able to do X, Y, and Z. Ah, that was a good use of your time. Got it. But just make sure that it makes sense. Okay? So gaps is one. Let's talk about layoffs. After a layoff, I realized I wanted to move into a role where I could use my communication skills more directly. I'm excited about what I'm moving towards. Now, in this case, remember I said as you how you answer the questions gives us a feel for whether you're positive about what happened in your past experience or whether you're negative about it. This is one of those times. Nobody wants to be laid off. And you're probably feeling some kind of way. Okay? If you were laid off, you're feeling some kind of way. How do you make sure that you don't, that negative potential negativity doesn't show up in your response? And it's in this way. I realized during this time, while it was, and what you're acknowledging by saying just this is during that, while this wasn't an unfortunate issue, I would have preferred not to be laid off and have my income stop and all those types of things. What I realized that this was a wonderful opportunity for me to really focus on what is it that I really enjoy doing. Now that I have a chance to step back from the grind for a minute, what do I really want to spend my time focused on? What do I want the next 10 years of my working career to really be focused on? And that's how this question or this response is positioned. Okay, let's look at the last two here. Caregiving. I saw someone say in the chat. What about caregiving? Here's an example. And every situation is different. So you'll have to kind of massage based on, and hopefully you guys are taking screenshots. I stepped away from full-time work to support a family member, which strengthened my organization, communication, and problem-solving skills. I'm now fully available and eager to re-engage professionally. Now, this is a good one. What are some of the nuances of this one? Tell me in the chat. What are a couple things that you see in this one? Thank you, Wayne. Check on how to talk on layoffs. Fantastic. What are some things you see in the caregiving one specifically? Clarifies the caregiving. Okay, family is a core value, not an ongoing situation. How you thrive. They don't need to explain the specifics of what happened. New skills, yes, or strengthened skills in this case. Okay, and fully available. Yes, Carmen, they're fully available to focus because even though an employer can't ask, do you still have that responsibility? I mean, they might say, hey, I hope your mom is better, or whatever. And even if they say that, that's probably a way of them trying to find out, like, is this still a caregiving opportunity for you? But it's a great way to be able to say, hey, I am fully engaged and ready to go back. And it's a way of saying I'm no longer a caregiver without saying my loved one passed away, you know. Okay. But it's a positive outcome, Rachel. That's the thing. It's a positive outcome. Very good. Reentry. After time away from the workforce, I've been intentional about updating my skills and clarifying my direction. I'm confident in the value I bring and ready for this next chapter. Okay, so someone put in the chat earlier about 10 years away. 10 years away. So I'm going to throw that back out to the group. What would you say? Does this re-entry answer work for someone who's been out of the workforce for 10 years? Yasmin says yes. Ash says, I don't think it's enough info. No, yes, no, yes, no, probably. Okay. We're mixed. We are mixed. If you were an interviewer, now, because we got a couple minutes here, Oleg, if you were an interviewer, what more would you want to hear? Susan says, and talk about the skills you gained. Yes. What else? Yes. Back to the skills. This one is a little light on the skills, knowing you've been gone for 10 years. How much of the world has changed in the last 10 years? What have we seen in the last 2 years that we have not seen, call it 10 years? AI, yes. So if you've been gone 10 years, how many updates has Microsoft had in 10 years? How many iPhones has has Apple come out with in 10 years? How many times has PowerPoint changed in 10 years? There's a lot. And so in this case, with a gap that long, you're going to have to be able to demonstrate that you have honed some skills that are very current skills, not old skills. You can't rely on, I used to be an accountant. Everything has changed. I used to be, everything has changed. So you're going to need to be able to articulate some current skills that matter to the company that you now have. Okay? All right. You're very welcome, Jaden. Okay. So here's what you want to remember. Employment gaps are seasons. They're not flaws. Career changes highlight transferable skills. Every time you work in a different industry, every time you work in a different function, I say function, I mean finances, HR, sales, whatever, those are transferable skills. And nonlinear paths means and demonstrates that you have the ability to adapt and to learn. So once you stop apologizing for your path and start explaining it clearly in a way that people can understand it, that again doesn't apologize for you having these things, these life things, then your confidence starts to shift. Confidence starts to shift. All right, part four, part four of the four-part framework, where you're going. This is where you are connecting your past to your next step. This is where clarity and confidence absolutely shine. You're not describing your dream job 10 years into the future. You're describing your next logical step based on your history and your experiences. So here's an example. Now I'm looking for a role where I can support teams, communicate clearly, and continue growing professionally. So that's an example of where you're going. I'm looking for a role where I can do these things. I can support teams, I can communicate, I can continue to grow. Let's do a quick review. In the chat, what is part one of the framework? Part one. Where you've been. Fantastic. You all are listening. I love it. All right. Part two. What's part two? What you're known for. What you're known for, which is the skills plus impact. Okay. The skills you have plus the impact that it delivers. Your super strengths or your superpower. You got it. What's part three? The shift or growth moment. Yes, yes, yes. Shift or growth moment is part three. And then part four, where you're going. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Okay, I love it when people are listening. Let's put it all together. Let's see what an example looks like. I've shown you bits and pieces of it as we've gone along, but let's look at a full example of how you might communicate a career story succinctly. Most of my experience has been in customer service and administrative roles within healthcare and education. I'm known for staying organized, communicating clearly, and helping teams run smoothly during busy times. After my layoff, I reassessed my goals and I realized I wanted to move into a role where I could support people more directly. Right now, I'm looking for an opportunity where I can leverage my communication skills, learn, and collaborate with a supportive team. That's the story. All right, now let's break it down. This first sentence, most of my experience has been in customer service and administrative roles within healthcare and education. Which of the parts is that? Which of the four-part career story is that? Where you've been, Ash. Thank you. Perfect. Second, I'm known for staying organized, communicating clearly, and helping teams run smoothly during busy times. Which part? Part two, perfection. After my layoff, I reassessed my goals and realized I wanted to move into a role where I could support people more directly. Three, Veronica, yes. Genesis, Hermangi, I'm probably saying that wrong. Kathy Hornback, wonderful. All right. Right now, I'm looking for an opportunity where I can leverage my communication skills, learn, and collaborate within a supportive team. Part four, by matter of deduction. Okay, very good. So let me pause here. Let me pause here, and because I'm not looking at any questions that might have shown up in the Q&A portion, Oleg. So are there any questions that I have missed so far?
There are a couple of questions, and I'm sure folks have more questions coming in. So I'm going to give people a little bit of time. And actually, I wanted to say a couple of things
Yes.
about number one, from the librarian's perspective, audiobooks are legit. Reading, there you go.
Yes, yes, yes.
A great way to do it. Oh, somebody asked, is this being recorded? This is being recorded and it's going to be on YouTube. So you'll be able to watch it after if you missed anything and glean more knowledge by reviewing. Somebody mentioned about the career gap being intentional in the
Hmm.
chat, and I felt like there's a bunch of great response given at that, but that's a really great one. That you know what, it's I intended to do this. This was something that I chose to do. I was
Hmm.
intentional about taking the gap, intentional about coming back. The power is for the person.
That's right. You control the narrative.
And then one more thing before we get to the questions. And if you all have questions, please go ahead and keep putting them into the Q&A.
I'm
Uh,
gonna while you're thinking
yeah,
that one, I'm
yeah,
gonna
take a look.
I'm gonna say the name wrong. If you've been away for 10 years, you need to sharpen your skills.
Yeah,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
yeah.
Yes. Okay.
I think a lot of people feel when they've taken a gap that there's going to be like one crucial moment in the interview where it's going to come up, where you're going to explain your gap. Like, so like now is the time. You're on the spot. But sometimes I don't. That may not have, especially if your gap is not that big. If it's like a year or
Hmm.
two, they may
Yeah,
not even ask. You're going to spend your entire interview explaining your skills, showing why you're the good fit for the position. So they may not even end up asking you about it.
correct. And again, I go back, Ola, to I would not bring it up unless you can truly point to, hey, during the time you may have noticed in my resume. Because if sometimes you're like, okay, this is the elephant in the room. Let me just see if they're going to bring it up or not.
Yeah.
But you may have noticed on my resume that there's a 1 year, 2 year, making it up gap. During that time, and you can decide what you want to share or not. But during that time, I made a decision to take, 1 to 2 years away. And I made that decision so that I could focus on boom, boom, and boom. And because of that decision to focus on those things, here are the skills I learned, or here's the da 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 that I learned. And you can address it that way and it just goes away. But what it becomes is it becomes a great answer that helps to showcase your skills versus, oh my gosh, I hope they don't ask me about. No, prepare your answer. Prepare your answer. And then you can decide whether this is something you want to hit head on. I've seen people do it multiple ways. Hit head on, or do you just want to wait until it comes up?
So this is actually a good time to segue into our Q&A. So the first question is, what if your gap is due to issues with addiction? You're now sober for a year, and before the addiction, they were a hardworking individual, and they're back to it. Should they even mention? How should they mention it?
I would not mention that. I wouldn't mention that at all. I would just keep it high level and say, there I had a window of time where I wasn't working. And during that time, I chose to, I focused on this, which I believe will really help me in this next role. But I
Yeah.
certainly would not be as transparent to say,
Sure.
it was
Life
because of me.
circumstances.
Yeah, yeah.
So what if you haven't actually accumulated a lot of work-related skills per se during a caregiving time away or reentry?
I think if you think about it and you say, what are all the things I did on a day-to-day basis between figuring out my parents, I keep saying parents, but it may not be, figuring out my parents' bills, figuring out how to get them the care they need, how to sign them up for Medicare, made all the things. Those things take skill. They take organization, they take tenacity, they take,
Yes.
so I think if you really take a step back and say, what are the things that I had to do to operate and make sure that everything was running as it should while I was giving care to this person? I bet you will come up with some skills.
Yeah. Maybe you didn't accumulate, but at least you
You
used the
use something.
skills.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So what
Yeah.
about
Problem
ageism?
solving and patience, Jody. Yes. Yes.
So somebody wants to know about, in terms of mentioning experience, how do you address or deal with the potential for ageism?
Uh, well, I, that's a great question. Ageism typically shows, I can't say when it shows up. I would say that the key is to be able to articulate current skills. It is hard. You can look at someone and say, oh, they're older.
Mhm.
Okay, you can. You can look at someone and say, oh, they're older. But if in the process of the interview, they are able to tell you all the latest stuff and they can communicate examples of, I leveraged, synthetic intelligence to create a da da da. If they can do all those things and talk about all those things intelligently, and it clearly communicates that they have skills, that goes out the window. At the end of the day, people want people who can deliver.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what if you lost so much confidence in your last painful job experience that you can't even identify any strengths, and
Um,
consequently that also hinders your ability to describe number four? The question is where you're going, or where you're going. So, what do you do in that situation? How do you build back up from a terrible experience?
I will tell you, I had an experience just like that. And going into that role, and it was a role I had much anticipated. I had worked my whole career to get there. And I got there and had one set of expectations, and I thought I was just I had been a rock star for 20 plus years. I'm like, well, I'm just going to continue to be a rock star because, I'm just that good. And I got there, and I will tell you, I had the worst manager I've ever had in my entire, I've worked for 34 years. I had the worst manager I've ever had in my entire career. And my self esteem before that 2 years was up was so low. And this is a person who's written books, and I mean, you take, I've done the stuff. I talk to people about being confident, da, 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 and I was this big, this big. And part of it was, I fought myself. I'm like, how did I allow this person to make me feel so poorly about myself when I know I have these skills? Historically, I've had these skills. They haven't gone away. It's just I'm so beat down by the environment that I've forgotten. And so that's what I will tell you. I don't know who asked the question. Go back, because there was a time when you were really good at whatever it was. There was a time when you can say without a shadow of a doubt, this is my superpower. You are not going to be, there are certain things that I do, and I say, you are not going to beat me doing that. That is my space. So I want to encourage you to think about it the same way. What is the thing? And you kind of got to get past there. You're gonna have to build yourself back up. Because that's the part I didn't say is some of it you have to build yourself back up. I am a firm believer in affirmations. On the side of my mirror in the bathroom, I have like 30 affirmations. I am wealthy, I'm healthy, all the things that I say. And that is for the purposes of building myself back up. So some of it you got to build yourself back up, but also rely on other people. If there were people you've worked with in the past, people who know you, they can help you and tell you, here's the things you're really good at. And you're probably going to go, no, I'm not, because that's where your mind is right now. But listen to them. Listen to them with the intent of building yourself back up.
Thank you. That's a really important answer. I think everybody has at some point experienced that, and knowing where to go next. And your last point of listening, let your people tell you.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So the next question, what do you do if you have learned skills that you've learned on a job but don't have certifications? How do you address that during an interview and in your what's called in your pitch and telling your story?
Yeah, you don't have to have certifications. You only have to have certifications if the job description says we need someone certified in X, Y, and Z. But the certifications don't matter per se, as long as you can demonstrate that you are truly skilled, truly skilled in that area. I
Like
wouldn't
your
let that be a
portfolio,
hindrance.
etc.
Hmm.
So somebody mentioned very aptly that on this page it says that there's an app. What is that?
That is my app that has my speakers training camp program. So for people who want to learn public speaking at their own pace, that is really my speakers training camp program that I typically give as 1 day, 2 day events to corporations, organizations. It is all that information in the app that you can purchase that way versus it's a more affordable way to work with me, is in essence what it is.
And there's the
Thank you for
URL for the
asking.
app is right there. Sure, the URL for the app is right there. It's
Yeah.
number 5 under
Mhm.
questions. Let's see. Do you recommend having several stories for an interview?
Oh my gosh, yes. I'm gonna tell you, and I think I've said this, Oleg, in every one I've been in. I still remember in college, I know, long time ago, I told you all how old I am, but I would write down, and look, all the behavioral questions, they have not changed. I mean, just Google behavioral questions, and there'll be a semblance of, different questions for teamwork and collaboration and dealing with conflict, and all these different things. So, what I would recommend you do is I would recommend you go and Google behavioral questions, and depending on the type of role, give me 5 questions, 4 questions, however many, on teamwork. Give me 3 questions on boom. And then literally write out, I wrote out everything, but you can type it as well. Type out your car formatted based answers to every question and have multiple responses for each type of question. Most interviewers are going to ask you a question on teamwork. They're going to ask you a question on conflict resolution. They're going to ask you a question on, tell me a time when you manage risks with little funding. Like it just depends on the company. And so you need to have multiple answers for each because sometimes you'll start to answer the question and it sounds too much like the answer you gave to another question, or it's not really getting at the answer we want. So we might say, can you give me a different example? Or can you give me another example? So you always want to have at least 2 responses to every question.
That's vital. Practicing those stories,
Practice is
getting the
key.
stories from your resume, all that, making it real.
Yes, yes.
What
And
else?
also be thinking about things, not to interrupt you, Ollie, but
Oh, go
also
ahead,
be
please.
thinking about things where you've led projects. If you've been on special projects, someone asked me the other day, hey, it was actually a young man that I used to mentor when I worked at Procter and Gamble. And he said, Christy, I aspire to be at this level, but every role I've had so far doesn't have any people management. Like I'm moving up in the organization, but I don't have any people management. How can I get to this level or how can I change companies and talk about that I want to manage a team of people, but I've never had this experience. And so my recommendation to him was twofold. Number one, um, see if ask the company that you're currently with if there are any opportunities for you to manage someone, whether it's an admin, whether it's someone that's just below you that contributes to the work. That's number one. Number two, Do you work with a multifunctional team? And if you work with a multifunctional team, you don't necessarily have to, they don't necessarily have to report to you, meaning you're responsible for their career, but do they take direction from you? Because you can spin that in an interview to say that you are leading people in that way. And then the third thing I told him was to ask for some, create some special projects. So, for example, he was going to a conference. He was going to go to a conference. And I said, okay, so what's your goal in going to the conference? The company's paying for it. What do you want? What are you going to get out of it? He said, well, I'm going to go and grab some ideas. I want to bring them back to the company. I said, fantastic. So when you bring those back and they're out of the box, new things that the company is not doing, volunteer to lead a project to explore that for the company. And then you build your team. And now that becomes demonstration of leadership skills, even without the direct leadership or direct management of people. I may
So
have gone off on a tangent, but
no, it's good. And we're here for you. You've got the
I'm
excellent
here for
information here.
it.
Somebody said in the chat, wow, great idea.
Yeah,
There we go.
wonderful.
So let's see. I've been out on short-term disability post-surgery. I'll likely need some form of accommodation for new roles, for example, having a chair or changing positions. Assuming I should not address this until offered the role since it's ADA related, unless directly asked in an interview, if I can do the role as in during the interview. I think uh, it seems like this question is, you know, should it be, if they need an accommodation during the interview?
Hmm.
Um, there's usually, if that's the question, then I think that you'll agree, Chris. There's usually before an interview, it asks you, do you need an accommodation for the interview?
Correct.
So if you do, then yeah, you ask for it.
Hmm.
But yeah,
Yep.
don't bring it up unless you
Mm-mm.
have to.
Hmm.
When you get the offer, then I think that's probably the
I
best
agree with
practice
that.
for that.
I agree with that.
What tip can you give for a middle-aged person who has spent their entire career with the same boss and feels like they've stalled professionally a long time ago, but want to reboot before the boss retires?
What does reboot mean? And I think my first question would be, why have you been in the role that long?
Yeah, it seems like there's a lot of kind of self-reflection and
Hmm.
values kind of
Hmm.
seeking here. Like why do you want to leave? You know,
Yep.
where do you want to go? What is important to you moving forward, right?
Yep.
Identifying those things will help answer some of that, like that, the why, and then from that, the how.
Yes. Absolutely.
Somebody asked about following. If it's a phone interview, do you follow up? Oh, be like, yeah, write a thing, send a thank you note, even if it's a phone interview.
Thanks, Alice. Appreciate you.
Let's see.
What other
Uh,
questions we have?
let's see. I've used a similar statement as putting it all together for the tell me about yourself question. Oh, I see. Putting it all together is like similar to tell me about yourself.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yep.
for the tell me about yourself
Yep.
questions. Yeah,
A
that seems
good
about right.
summary of your
Yeah.
of your background in the future. Yep.
Looks like somebody made another comment regarding ageism. I think this is more of a comment here. Regarding ageism, maybe instead of framing as experienced something for X number of years, we can focus on impact and achievements, emphasize relevance and adaptability.
Nice.
That's the
Love
kind of
it.
thinking that we're talking about here, right?
Hmm. I love
There we
that.
go. How do you approach if one currently has multiple? Where are you going? Oh, adapt to the position, right? I mean,
It depends.
yeah,
That's always my favorite response. First time
yeah.
I've used it today. It depends. I say it depends because if there are multiple where you're goings and they are disjointed, meaning they are not going down the same street, like, then that makes you look like you don't really know where you're going versus I have a clear I have a clear path, a clear plan of where I want to be.
Let's see, can you refer to yourself as a freelancer or consultant in your gap, even if you're doing unpaid work that still develops your skills?
Absolutely. It's all
Good
about
job.
the skill development. What did you learn? And what are you doing with it?
Now, this question is really it's important, and I think actually it's a question that I have as well. Uh,
Mhm.
how do you create a pathway or structure to close your gaps, the gaps of your skills that might be needed for a position, and then how do you validate your gaps or competencies?
Okay, so
So
bring me
if
the
you've
first part
done
of the
those
question.
classes, so
Yeah.
like how do you create a pathway or structure to close the skills gaps that you have? So you're looking at you identify what skills you have, then you look at a
Hmm.
job description and there's some overlap and then there's
Hmm.
some where the Venn diagram doesn't connect. So how do you structure closing those gaps? And then how do you validate? So how do you know that you've closed those gaps? How can you feel confident that you've closed those gaps and achieved those competencies in a way that you can share in a job interview?
Yeah. I think the first thing is you have to decide if you want to close the gaps. That's the first thing. Second thing is I think it depends on the role and what you're trying to do. Because, and so once you identify here is the path, here's where I want to be, and I've identified what those gaps are, let me first address how do you know what your gaps are? I love ChatGPT. If I have not said that today, I should be a spokesperson. I love
Yeah.
ChatGPT. And the more you feed it, and I know there's all different types of things, okay, but the more you feed it, the more it learns you. I have literally put in there and said, okay, when I retired, great example. When I retired, I said, all right, here's my background. What should, based on what I have done in the past, what should I be doing now? Like, what should my focus be? And it was like, and Oleg, it was like it knew me
Mhm.
because I'm in ChatGPT probably 4 hours a day. I mean, I'm in it all the time, but it knew me. But the other thing is the better example is I also have an interest in getting on some boards, some
Mhm.
paid boards. And so what I wanted to know was based on my current experiences, what do I need? Am I currently qualified to be on a paid board? Do I have the skill sets needed for someone to say, Christy, we are willing to pay you to be on our corporate whatever board? And it literally said, here are the things you need to learn. You're great at this. You have the Procter and Gamble and all the corporate experience. All those things are great. But what you're missing is you don't have the employee stock ownership plan knowledge. You don't have, and it gave me like three things that I don't
Yeah.
have that you need to get yourself up to speed on in order for you to be considered a viable candidate to be on a paid board. And so now I made the decision. I said, okay, now ChatGPT, how do I learn how to do these, get this info glide path? How do I
Mhm.
get this information? How do I learn how to do that? And now that's on my list of things to learn. So now I have a learning plan to fulfill those particular gaps.
Yeah. It's a cheap and easy way to get a second opinion.
Oh my gosh. Second, third, fourth, all
Yeah.
that. Love it.
So we're almost at time, and I really want to get to this question here. I feel like this is an important question for a whole lot of people, and I would like your feedback on it because I'm sure that you have some fantastic advice. Somebody says, I struggle with performance anxiety, as many do with interviews, of course. What do you recommend to help calm nerves before an interview?
I will give you the same. I saw this question. I'm glad it came back. I will give you the same advice that I give to all the people that I coach on public speaking training. The best way to overcome nerves is preparation, flat out, all day, every day. Preparation. Now, does that mean you're still not going to have a little, jitters and all those things? But when you know and are clear on what you are going to say, when you are confident in your background and your experiences, it makes it that much easier to be able to present yourself in a confident way. So yes, there are ways to manage your nerves, the music, the hype music, all the things, right? There's some things that we can do to kind of calm ourselves in the moment. Before this, I do this all the time, but I still get nerves. I
Yeah,
still get nerves. And for me, that is how I gauge like, okay, I'm gonna do a pretty good job. Because if I have no nerves, I'm like, oh, this is gonna fail. This is gonna just gonna it's just gonna fail. It just is. But in my case, the nerves for me is a healthy sign that things are
yeah.
going to go. Did
Yeah,
that answer the question?
100%. Yeah,
Okay.
preparation is, yeah. And I'll co-sign on that 1000% because I'm on here like I've done like hundreds of these. And when I have to do a presentation somewhere, I will rehearse and rehearse and rehearse.
Yes.
I'll
Yes.
and then after I've rehearsed all of those times, then I'm like, I'm gonna just do it one more time.
It's so true. It's so true. It's so true.
It seems like, when you're on and you like if somebody you see somebody doing a really like snappy presentation, it's so good, they will have rehearsed that presentation, other than if you're like in the
Yeah.
99.9 where you can just go and improvise, they will have practiced it.
Yes. And that's what I tell people. You practice to the point where people think you didn't practice.
Yeah, it's just
You want to
natural.
look so natural. And I look natural, but doggone it, I have practiced. I know what I'm going to say, and I have planned for every contingency.
Yeah.
Okay. As much as I can, I plan for every contingency. But that is the key. You don't want to look like you rehearsed.
Mhm.
You want to look confident and prepared.
Yeah,
That's it.
that's the way you prepare.
Yeah.
Well, Christy, thank you so much for this. Is every time you've presented a bunch of times for work ready. And every time I feel like I get something and I know the folks out there get so much great information. So very much appreciate your time and the folks out there appreciate your questions and your joining us today. I'm going to post the post event survey in the chat. If you have a moment to fill that out, we would very much appreciate it. Here are the keys to remember in the on the screen here. Once again, thanks, Christy, and we'll see you all next time.